This is Pooja, and welcome to another episode of the Afterlife Podcast. My guest today is Linda McCollum DeLong. Linda has a background in education and ESC. She has an endorsement in preschool ESC, Master's in Education, minor in non-Western religion and sociology. She's working towards her doctoral studies in ESC administration and a degree in graphic design. She has also taught special education for 20 years, and she has spiritual gifts and has had some amazing experiences that she is going to share with us today. So, welcome to the show, Linda.
Hi, thank you for having me. Looking forward to talking with you.
Thank you. You've had over 70 years of experience that's going to be very hard to capture in one podcast, but could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and some of the experience that started very early on for you?
It's been a really long journey. What I remember, it was free language in my crib, and what happened was just a blue light appeared and started communicating with me. Obviously, it was telepathic, and then he showed me a beautiful garden. It was like he pulled back a veil, and I realized it was home. And so for years, I kept telling my parents I wanted to go home. And of course, they kept telling me I was home. But not until 3 did I really know what his name was. And that came about when my babysitter asked me who I was talking to. And so I asked him, and he said his name was Tahuti. So for years, nobody knew who Tahuti was. In fact, it took me 40 years to actually find out who Tahuti was. And that was by accident when watching the History Channel. And if your audience isn't familiar with Tahuti, a lot of people know him as Thoth. And he is credited with being an Egyptian god who brought writing and knowledge to the Egyptian people. In the emerald tablets that he is credited with writing, he is said to build the pyramids. But that was just the beginning of my journey. So for several years, I saw things, heard things, tried to tell people things. And mostly it just got me another pill or another doctor because everyone thought you're crazy. But from the start, I started rejecting box religion. Not that I didn't believe in, not superior, a universal light, but I didn't believe how it was taught in churches. And at the age of 3, I told my mother I was never going back to church. But then I kept sampling churches and still couldn't find anything that I could agree with. And I have met one man that I agree with who's in my book, and he really taught religion. But at the age of 14, which had been 1963, I was in my bedroom, and my room turned into a bright light. It's hard to describe, but the room just lit up, and 7 beings came into my room. And their gowns at first are white, but they're more opalescent. And I should have been afraid, I guess, but I wasn't. And one of them just touched my hands, and I knew I had to go with them. And then we just out of my window, upstairs window, and the lake I lived next to just kept getting smaller. The neighborhood kept getting smaller, and then we appeared to be in the sky. And we kept going until we were going past stars and I guess planets. And then we were in a void. And then I did get scared. What am I doing here? But then all of a sudden we were in this round room, and there was nothing there but this very bright light that didn't hurt your eyes, but it should have. And then there was just, now that I know more about NDAs, it appeared to be a viewing, not really of my past lives, but just what maybe the future. I really don't know to this day what it was, but everything was moving in this big bowl table. And the light just told me that that I had to, I was not the chosen one, but I was a chosen one. And I would start receiving lessons. And from that day on, I would hear it like a cooing of a bird, and I would be with the light. It wouldn't matter what I was doing. I could be cooking, I could be in bed. I'd hear the cooing of the light. At that time, I had no idea what all this stuff was. I'm guessing out of body. I don't know the terminologies. I'm going to be 77. So back then you didn't talk about this stuff.
Mhm.
And every time we would have a lesson, he would just say, you remember it when the time is right. Well, as the years went on, I raised a family. I got my degrees. I taught school. I did art, wrote poetry, whatever. But he never said to tell anybody. And if people asked, somehow they would know. I would not do a reading, but just answer their questions. And I taught myself Reiki, but didn't know it was Reiki. I call it laying of hands. But then I have this large bird cage chair that I sit in. And I just was on my lanai and said, I'm getting pretty darn old. If you want me to talk, you better keep me around for a long time because I'm getting old. And he just said no. And then out of nowhere, I'd never watched broadcasts. My life is very busy with my kids. My daughters are disabled, two of them are. And so we don't have the structured life that some people have. And all of a sudden, four people, podcasters, reached out to me and said, hey, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, and so that just turned my world upside down in a good way because since the first broadcast in 2023, I've did readings all over the world. Somehow people find me, and I've did around 200, give or take. And mostly they want to talk to their loved ones that have passed. And I hadn't done that a lot. I did it a little bit, but I find it very easy to just go home. And when I go home to the garden, to the light, it's the most beautiful place you'll ever want to be. The It's a total vibration, but it's colors, and everything is talking to you in some kind of vibrational communication. And you just feel like you're one with the garden. And when I go to the garden for people, I ask them just to tell me the person's first name and their birthday. And then I just reach out to them. And they come into the garden as an orb, and then they take shape. And then they give me things to validate. They'll tell me something that only the person I'm doing the reading for knows. And then they'll answer the questions that the person asks me. And so I never know what they tell me. One of the quickest, easiest one is a woman wanted to talk to her mother, and it made no sense at all to me. We were seeing different images of her growing up and stuff with her mother. And then all of a sudden a football comes flying through the air, and I'm like, so I wrote it down. And I went back to the lady and I said, told her everything. And I said, the only strange thing is, the football mean anything to you? And she just started crying. She said, when I wanted to play softball, I couldn't catch the softball. So mom threw a football to me until I could catch the softball. She's telling you something that no one else probably knows. And this is how it happens. Just recently, a friend of mine that I did a reading for years ago, who became a friend, she was hoping to talk to her dad again. I said, well, he's trying to call you. I know he's near. And then we stopped talking. She sent me a text and a picture that her dad had called her. Her phone showed her dad's number on the phone with his picture. So she called the number back and it said it was disconnected. So that's how things happen. They just fall into the light, just sends things.
Linda, your story is so beautiful. I was thinking when I was listening to you, I used to work in a daycare center for a little bit, and there were toddlers in my classroom, and there was one kid that would keep talking to someone. I, I could never see who he was talking to. It was so real to him, and he didn't have language. He would just use gibberish. And just before nap time, and then he would hold his hand out and be calling somebody. And I thought he was always talking to this imaginary friend. But who knows? He may be talking to some being or of light like you. And you grew up in the 50s. I cannot imagine what that was like if you tried to share that with someone. There was no awareness around near death experiences, out of body, not the way it is now. We hear about it so much. Did you ever feel like you could share things with the adults in your life around you? And did you feel validated or shut down?
A lot. Because when I did try to share, usually it got another doctor would say, and they'd give me another pill for being depressed, or they think I want to commit suicide. All kinds of things happened like that. And the more I saw, I eventually just quit telling people. And the more I've talked to other people, they said they've done the same thing. And it's like, now it's hard to shut me up sometimes. As my granddaughter can attest, she's psychic also. But it just makes no sense the way that people don't understand the light is with you at all times. You can turn him on.
Mhm.
You can ask for help, and when you think he doesn't answer, maybe he doesn't, because there's a reason. I don't know the reason, but sometimes in my book, you'll see that my life has been full of hurdles. Uh, my daughters, like I said, are disabled, but they were born gifted, 5 years apart, but for no reason that doctors have come up with yet. At 5, they both developed hydrocephalic and had water on the brain. And until then, they were reading at 3, meeting all up, and they were tested gifted for school. And at 5, it all stopped. And now they're very active now. They're 50 and 55 and live at home, but they do have their bouts, and each of them have died at least once and been brought back. They have one has past lives she's told me about prior to becoming disabled. So I don't know where to go from here, but I feel that when you reincarnate, most people think they forget everything. But the epiphany that I've seemed to come up with lately is I don't think we forget. I think we're building our DNA. And if we choose or we need, somehow we can reach back into our prior lives. And if you look in my book, I talk about that. I talk about several past lives and then talk about the threads of each life. And there is a thread from every life. It can be the month, it can be teaching, it can be art,
Mhm.
it can be something that you carry down to this life.
I definitely got that. I've started reading your book. I'm only in chapter 5. I haven't finished it, but would you mind holding that up for us, Linda? Because I think it's a very well written, beautiful book. And it's never too late. You inspiring not just me, but many people, because you just recently published it, didn't you, last year?
In October.
Yeah, so it's not, could you hold that up a little bit higher so we can see it
Yes,
better? Walking Between Two Worlds. Yep. And it's available on Amazon. That's where I got my copy. So thank you for writing that book. And what motivated you after all these years? Because you just did that last year. And that's amazing to me. Because, like I say, it's never too late to get your story out there.
reason I did the book was because most of the people I do the reading for, why aren't you putting it in a book? And like I said, my life was extremely busy, not on purpose, mostly because I just how it is. And somebody reached out to me and he turned out to be a fraud. I really questioned his methods, but then AJ Parr, who is also a podcaster, and we had been friends. And he said, why didn't you take me up on my offer? And I'm going, when? And so I looked at my notes. I had had a mini stroke. It'd be 2 years in July. And that's when AJ had said, why didn't I write a book with him? But I guess I just didn't catch it. And so I didn't do it. And then I asked AJ about this other guy if he knew him. He said, no, but why don't you do it with me? And so I just dropped the other person because he was very questionable. Then AJ and I put the book together. So it's just since 2023, it's the real just plain came to there was a lot of validations and people finally are going, gee, and understanding what I'm saying without thinking something's wrong. I'm able to answer questions for them. So that's why I waited. It wasn't on purpose. I've written children's books that aren't published yet, maybe never will be. I've had my photography in galleries a few times.
Yeah.
Didn't sell anything, but they were
Yeah.
there.
No.
I did art shows.
Yeah.
You know,
No. Thank you for getting your book and your story out there, Linda. And I just want the people that are listening and watching, I just want them to know I'm very careful with who I bring on for these interviews because there are so many people out there and there are so many different stories. There's so many people that still are on this edge where they're wondering if there's anything out there that's bigger than this material world that we can see with our eyes. And there's so many people looking for comfort, but their loved ones have crossed over. And you mentioned doing those readings. So, a thing that I like in your book that I've already read, I think it's in chapter 4, is the signs that we can look for. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, people do not realize that it's not like they're spying on you all the time, but they are there. And oftentimes, in my mother's case, when daddy passed, he came to me all the time. He was just there. And my mother actually got upset with me and told my sister to tell me to stop talking about daddy. I'm like, why? He's there. But mom said, he never comes to me. And I'm like, how do you call him, mom? Do you say, Harry, I miss you? I love you? Or do you say, where the hell are you? Mom's personality was more like that. And of course, that offended her. And I said, Mom, reach out to dad. And whether she ever contacted him, I don't know. He's still around me whenever I want him. But I do have I'll show you a pictorial thing, but a red cardinal. If you see a cardinal, it could be a cardinal. But if that cardinal seems to come quite often, I have one that comes and it chirps so loud that my family will say, your bird's back. And that bird, I'll go out and say, hi, want to talk, crazy as that sounds. And I just listen and somehow transmits a name to me. An example of that is a friend about a year ago. It said her name, or I heard her name, and then I heard leg. So I called her without saying the bird told me and said, how are you guys doing? Actually, her husband had just broke his leg, and I had no way of knowing that. So cardinals are a sign that a lot of people see as a spirit, as a loved one. Doesn't mean every cardinal you see is a loved one, but they're beautiful. Smells from your kitchens. Maybe you liked apple pies and mom made a great one. Music's a big one. You might hear songs that remind you of something. If you hear that song once in a while, fine. But if it seems to be a constant, that could be one. Clocks, especially digital clocks, you might see the numbers over and over. Perfumes, aftershaves, that seems to be a big one. A white feather, especially if it's not one that you see quite. If you live on a farm with chickens, you're going to see feathers. But if you see a feather, especially a white one, that's usually a sign. Birds in particular, if there's a group of them, flowers. One time, someone was wanting to hear from her son, and he kept showing me a purple flower. And she said, I don't have any purple flowers. I said, I don't know if it's artificial or what it is, but he keeps showing me a purple flower. And all of a sudden she just gasped. His casket spray was purple roses and orbs. Lots of times we see orbs and they can be reflections off the light, your TV, whatever. So always kind of a think with a logical mind and say, couldn't it be this? Can it be that? But oftentimes, just recently again, I have cameras in my daughter's rooms because they're disabled. And all of a sudden, this orb is in her room. And so I'm trying to figure out anything that it's reflecting from. And we're yet to know what it came from, but who knows? But there was an orb in her room, and she does talk to lights, and so does my daughter. Clouds. And a really good example of that during a reading for somebody, they just wanted to talk to their dad. And so I went home, and dad was playing with his toddler. And she hadn't mentioned a toddler. And so I wrote it down, and he said, I'm taking care of. He gave me the child's name, and I wrote down what the child looked like. And so I went back to tell the lady what I saw, and she just burst into tears. And she said, oh my God, he's got Alex. I think it was, I don't know if that was the right name, but anyway. And she said her sister had a child who crawled out a doggy door in the middle of the night, and there must have been a lake nearby, and he drowned in the lake. And her sister was still grieving with that. I said, well, your father said, you say I'm not around, but look at the clouds. And she sent me a picture the next day or a couple of days. It looked like a chair in the clouds. It looked like a child. And she sent me the picture. So clouds often look like something, but if you see the same cloud a lot, maybe that's a sign. They communicate so much in so many ways, but that picture even looked like a child to me. And he said, watch the clouds, we will send a message. And she told his sister, I don't know how she was actually sitting outside watching the clouds or just looked up, but she took a picture of it. And the person that had asked me, they were just couldn't believe that that happened. I couldn't believe it happened. Uh, the TV. I have another person who, when I first met her, the husband said he messes with her TV. And she said, after I told her that, she said, that's why I keep getting these westerns that he used to like. I don't even watch them. But he was playing with the TV. In fact, this is the same person, the mother of the same person that got the phone call. I didn't even know they were mother and daughter at first because of the last names. But he played with her. He was a jokester, they said, and he would change her TV. So your TV, maybe if the same show keeps showing up that they liked, that could be a. They love electronics.
I've definitely heard that.
Smoke. I smell smoke so much sometimes, and occasionally other people smell it. Of course, you go and look through your house, make sure nothing's burning, but smoke seems to be a way they connect, especially if they were smokers. But I don't smoke, and I grew up with smokers, but there's nobody smoking in the house now. And all of a sudden, there'll be a smoky smell in the house. And of course, turning off lights. They like to play with lights and flicker them. Again, electronics, I don't know because I can't really see my own picture, but
We can see it. If you hold it up a little higher, yes, we can see it. All the different signs. That's really beautiful, Linda.
it's just clip art that to give people a visual because we don't look for simple things. We think they're going to come down with their voices and wings or whatever. And it's usually very subtle things that you don't. So I always tell people when I do is to keep a piece of paper, or in this day and age, a lot of people their phone, but if you have a piece of paper and you find some common factors that just keep coming up, those could be signs of a loved one trying to reach you.
Absolutely. Wow, that was a pretty amazing list. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
It's
And
everyone says, how do you know these? I have no idea where they come from, but things just come. I can go into my meditation bubble, which is imaginary. Nobody else sees it, but I take my guides. I have 5 guides. I have Archangel Michael, unless he's Michael anyway, the council that came at 14, and the light. And they come, and let's say I'm talking to someone that is an outdoorsy person who likes the outdoors.
mhm,
Maybe the Native American will take over and start telling me things. Sometimes Michael gets aggressive and he'll want to take over the conversation and say this, and this. And it's just a group that helped me out. And if I get really confused or something, I have 2 people I go to. First, the light, the other's my granddaughter. My book is dedicated to her. She's always been there for me and she lives with us. And now she's an engineering student, but she is also psychic. And if I get stumped, we do a comparison and we usually come up with the answer. But she's not public with it at all, but she's been psychic all of her life too. So where it comes from, I know where it comes from the light, but how it started with me, I don't know. And how
mhm.
to an ancient deity from Atlantis, no idea.
You were in a crib, so definitely it wasn't like you chose that. It came to you.
And no one in my family, high school, for most of them, is as far as they went. I
Mm.
was the first one to go to college. So if someone taught me, or it was in the back of my memory because someone was talking about it. And like I said, I wasn't influenced. But it's nice to already know these things exist because people think I know things, and it's all been basically self-taught because nobody talked about it.
And I think it's such a blessing that you had the gift of knowing what home was. Because I feel like there's so many of us, we're living in this world, the routine, the rut, the race, and we often lose connection with that feeling of home. And I think that's such a blessing that you had that even as a baby, as a child. Carrying that feeling, I think, is a huge gift, Linda. And thank you for sharing that with us. I don't want to cut this conversation short. We're running out of time, but I don't want to miss talking about what we shared earlier. Did you want to talk a little bit about this, the automatic writing and some of the downloads you've been getting about the situation in the world today?
Just again, I don't know if I can hold this up. You have to tell me because I can't see my own pictures.
I see it.
It's definitely not my handwriting. But recently I've been getting a lot of automatic writings, and with what's going on in Minnesota, I've been told to remember the drumming code for my crib, which I don't remember. And I've talked to Native Americans trying being drums. Nobody's heard of the drumming code. But that led me to such a short time. But I was told the chosen ones would start to unite, and we need to rebel with truth. And they told me to remember the drumming code. In Minneapolis, when the protesters were beating on pans or whatever, it was like a light bulb.
Mm.
I'd seen well, I guess a sonic weapon. And it's in my book and never knew what it was. But when I reached out to a person that does ancient history, he had been researching some ancient weapons. From that, it led to a sonic weapon. And all the weapon that I saw, it was something pulsating. And we just recently used the sonic weapon in Venezuela. And that's what Tahuti did when he walked into Egypt. He raised his staff, and when he raised his staff, he calls them barbarians. They froze in their tracks and became, I think he said, like stones until he could speak to them. After he spoke to them, he released them. But he used a weapon referred to as a vibration. So I don't know if that goes back to there, but the emerald tablets, and maybe we can talk later. But the emerald tablets, now that I found them, didn't know they existed for years. What I've seen throughout my life, a lot in the emerald tablets, including calling the UFOs back. On top of the Giza pyramid, on the apex, is a crystal. I don't know if this is true, but according to the emerald tablets, Tahuti are taught, put it there when he completed it to communicate with the cosmos. I feel the cosmos are other races, but I also think we can't get this all in one thing. But anyway, the cosmos, I think, also refer to the satellites. And after you read my book more, maybe we can talk further. But the cosmos to me are maybe the satellites. Tahuti says they are sending false information and interfering with Earth's communication and their weather. So
This is pretty fascinating, Linda. I could talk to you. This could take another whole episode, but I actually want people to read your book because there's so much. When we share like this, yes, we get a lot out of it, but when you're reading it, and there's so many more details in the book too. So I think I'd love to direct people there because I've been reading it and I can't put it down, but I'm still only halfway through. So I'm glad that you wrote the book. I'm glad that you came on here to share your story, Linda. And again, running out of time, but I definitely wanted to take this moment to appreciate you. And other than Amazon, where can people find you? If they wanted to contact you for a reading, how could they do that?
go to Facebook, but I have two Facebooks, but use the same name that's on the book. Go to Facebook and send me a message, but use Linda McCollum DeLong, just
Mm-hmm.
like on my book. And when you and message me, but reference that you saw it on your podcast
Yes.
So I know I have a reference to who it's from. And because I do get a lot of messages and things, if I don't respond, it's not that I don't want to respond. I might have missed it. So just message me a couple times because if I don't message you, it means I didn't see it. I answer everybody.
I'll find that link, and what I'll do is I'll copy and paste it into the description of this show notes so people can find it easily. And I'll make sure to let them know to reference this podcast. Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Linda. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us. I hope you have a good day.
Just remember that even with all things in your life, depression sometimes comes because you don't understand, but it can be a catalyst if you get back up and keep trying.
Thank you for sharing that. For sure. I think that's a very common issue, in especially with people that are gifted and that are connecting to the other side. Living in two different realities can be very
Yes,
hard. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Linda.
good meeting.
You too.